Hello everybody, it's LionBricks. Welcome back to Building a Lego City. In this series I'm showing you how I'm putting together my custom Lego city from scratch. Now I'm sure you've all been wondering where I've been, why it's taken so long to upload a new episode. Anyway, we're going to start off by finishing off a few details as we usually do, and while I do that I'm going to talk a little bit about the plans that I've got for today's video. In the last update we worked on putting together the Lion Bridge, and you can see here I'm just finishing off all those details to get that fully finished, and today we're going to be working just next door, sort of opposite the fire station on the corner, just at the bottom of the slope of the road, and I'm going to be putting together and also finishing a brand new building in the city and also the very first skyscraper. I actually think that this is the first project that I've started and fully completed all in one video, so I do hope you enjoy. First, I want to show you a couple of little details that I've added around the city to help improve it. Of course, first of all, you've seen the bridge that I finished off, but I also added a couple of details to the town hall. I'm probably going to dedicate a future video to finishing all of that off, but I did order a couple pieces, so I made sure to add those. And then you'll also see that I've added in a few places where I plan to have trees in the future, just a couple of simple planters. I'm not going to build the trees yet because I want to build the buildings first so that I can calculate how big the trees can be and they don't get in the way throughout the entire building process. And then I also read a lot of your feedback on the roofs of my buildings, talking about how some of them are a little bit less detailed. They could use some extra features like roof hatches to allow access, so I went ahead and added those details. I do appreciate all the comments that I get on my videos. Keep them up and I'll make sure to implement as many of your great ideas as I can. I've also cleaned up the sidewalks a little bit, just filling in some of the cracks and coming up with some new clever ways to fit all the angles together just to make it look a little bit cleaner. Alright, so let's jump into putting together this new building. As you can see, this is where it's going to be. It's sort of situated between two other buildings that I'll be making in the future. The ground floor does resemble a lot of the other floors that we have higher up, however it does have a few distinct differences, mainly being that along the back I haven't added in any windows just because I plan to have a tree, and of course it wouldn't really be appropriate as there's other buildings that butt up against it. It's also about twice the height of the other floors, so it stands out on the ground floor and it stops it from blending in with the rest. And then you'll also see that on the pavement side where the sloped road is, it's actually a straight wall that's flush up against it, just to avoid any awkward angles transitioning between the curved pavement and whatever else I'd have to come up with to fill in that gap. So I left that bit at a 90-degree corner angle, and then as the higher floors progress, I do incorporate a little bit more shape, which allows me to add this nice little roof on top as well with a bird. I did put on a little sign and a logo of sorts. I used another one of the moulded LionBricks, which I used on the Lion Bridge, only this is in tan. And then the tile I used is actually just from the Parisian restaurant. I really didn't want to make any custom tiles for this. I do like sticking to official Lego parts. You can't really read it from a distance, and it works great as maybe a hotel logo. I could add a restaurant in the bottom in the future. I haven't fully decided on what the theme of this building is going to be yet, whether it would be an office building or, as I said, a hotel, maybe a restaurant. So if you have any thoughts on what you think this building should look like, please do let me know down in the comments. So next up I had the repetitive task of putting together all of the other floors for the skyscraper. In total we've got the ground floor, and then there's 6 of these kind of default floors, and then there's also a modified one at the very top, which you'll see shortly. I've only got about 5 of the clips here. Unfortunately one of the files got corrupted, But I mean, they're all the same, so you kind of get the general picture of what it's like to put together these floors, as you're going to see it a couple of times. These are a lot more detailed, as I mentioned previously, than the ground floor. We've got these panels that are above the top and the bottom of the windows, and then there's also a section which cuts in where the curved road would have been, and that allows me to add this cool little kind of fake window really across them, just as an architectural detail to spice up the building a little bit. And then of course, as I mentioned previously, on the back I've replaced the curved section, which would have just been the plain wall, with a couple of extra windows which adds some more light, as well as the wall next to it. I've added a few windows on the white section as well. This build is actually inspired by a design by Wootools which I saw way back in the day, and it features a lot of similar aspects like the big curved glass front element and also the architectural white glass detail on the very front. I've not made a building quite like this in the past, so it certainly opened my eyes to some of the possibilities, and I'm looking forward to using a lot of the similar techniques that I used in this one in some of the future skyscrapers, and just sort of looking forward to experimenting with some of the different shapes that I can create in the future as well. There's a lot of clean lines throughout this build, and one of the ways I was able to achieve that is by actually mixing together two of the different coloured hinge plates together so that I could kind of get the functionalities and the strength that they provide, which was obviously the whole reason I used them, without really sacrificing the colour blocks that they kind of jut into, because I can't really use them on the very top or the very bottom, as that's where I'd usually have something like tiles. So once I finished these off, I went ahead and threw them onto the ground floor, and immediately you can see this skyscraper taking shape. I really love how this looks. I think it fits in with the kind of style of the other buildings really perfectly. A lot of my buildings are kind of a mixture between modern era and some slightly older buildings, and the aesthetic of this is definitely very similar to the police station. So as I say, I do think it fits in really well. And then you can also see how I put together this slightly modified version for the top floor, which would have been the 7th floor, and it basically just takes the front curve section and continues it around to make a perfect circle, and then I've just added in this balcony around the space that is left over. So finally, for the cherry on top of this building, I went ahead and put together the roof, which is this nice little compact circle. I'm really glad that the angles of this lined up in a way that I was able to use bricks to really quite perfectly fill in all the gaps around the edges without sacrificing how this looks, because as you know, circles and Lego really don't always mix too well. But it's pretty clean. It just continues the windows all the way up using some slightly smaller ones, and then I've added a couple of various details on the roof, as I always like to do, things like pipes, air conditioning systems, stuff to look complicated and make it look detailed, as well as some vents and a little bird as well. And then of course I did make sure to add in that roof access that you guys love to demand. However, since this is almost entirely glass, you can see straight through and you can't actually see the stairs yet. So although I haven't made the interior just yet, I may add in the stairs just to make it look a little bit more believable. And with that, for the exterior at least, that is the entire building complete. It's really nice to have a new building in the city. It creates this nice triangle of buildings in the very centre, and it really helps it feel more like a city and less like a construction site. I'm really happy with the direction that this city's going in, and I'm really looking forward to finishing off some of the other buildings and also adding in some more buildings which I have lots of ideas for. That's going to wrap up today's video. Feel free to leave a like if you did enjoy, and I do of course always love reading your comments. But until next time guys, thanks for watching.